Hi everyone, welcome to Football and Finance with Joseph,
Nash.
and we're episode 6. So yeah, still going. Yeah, glad to have you guys with us. Those that are following, subscribing, watching, liking, appreciate it. But Nash, how was the week? Apologize, we're doing it a bit later than usual, like 9 days rather than the usual weekly. My bad.
Yeah, week's good. Yeah, not too much to report really. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff going on at work. But I think, I guess, you might as well tell our viewers, like the reason I had to postpone filming a couple of days was it was my brother-in-law's birthday. So I went to Madrid, trying to catch all the derbies. So I went like all the big derbies around the world. So I went to El Clasico, which was, damn, like I can see why it's the biggest football rivalry. I mean, like it's one of those that like you're kind of like pinching yourself that you're there. Quality of football, unreal. And then obviously ended with a bit of this, like the in the 91st minute. So yeah, that was quite cool.
I thought you did a little dance. To be fair, I saw him doing a little. I don't know who's doing a dance here, but yeah, he's doing a dance.
No, it was yeah. Like, I mean, the quality of the football. I think like you realize when we've talked in the past about like institutions, teams that spend a lot of money, etc. Like just quality of players on the pitch. Some of the passes, like Modric, unreal. Like Lamine Yamal, that 16-year-old kid. Like I mean, you're seeing some of these players up close, like, and you're like, wow. Like in terms of they're seeing passes that even you can't see, and you're sat up in the middle tier or something. So just shows the levels, and it kind of shows the levels that Chelsea and all these other clubs may just never reach. Like it may take like 50, 60 years, but it was good, you know. The ticket I managed to get was one of my friends, his season ticket, which was that's when you hear how much season ticket costs abroad. You're kind of like, whew, they're much cheaper than like you can literally get like 3 season tickets in some of the Spanish clubs for the price of one in England. And that probably leads us nicely onto like the our first topic around Nottingham Forest in the news again. Not points deductions this time. Uh, Inflated or increase in season ticket prices. What did you think when you saw it?
Inflated season ticket prices, Nottingham Forest. I think that they they're kind of betting on themselves a little bit because they're like, we're raising the prices whether we get relegated or not. So I like that aspect to it. I was like, okay, well, do your thing. I think it's another example of the clubs trying to kind of squeeze revenue, isn't it? Like even some of the not so bigger clubs recognizing that they need to get every pound that they can get. Some of them are drastically increased. Like I think some of the, particularly the younger children's prices have gone up by 100%, 200% sort of thing. Yeah, just it's all about getting more money. They need more money. They're not they're in debt. Like these clubs are struggling financially. I think because of player wages. Um,
They're
and
really
so
part of it.
and so they're just on a hamster wheel, basically trying to. I'm not saying they're in debt because not all the clubs are in debt, even though a lot of them are reporting that.
Their
Their,
financial position's not great.
their financial position isn't strong, and they're seeing what other kind of commerce they can do, whatever revenue they can bring in, and this is just one aspect of it. And I think that you've seen Liverpool as well having fan protests against. Rises in ticket prices. It's just par for the course now.
It was. I thought it was a bit harsh because I kind of looked at. Yeah, the increases sound like a lot, right? But if you look at their season tickets anyway, it was one of the cheapest in the league, and it was actually one of the cheaper ones in the championship as well. I kind of feel like this is probably an example of. Do you remember we've talked about financial fair play and the impacts on assessing championship teams under a marker, even though they've been in another league? That's completely different business model. I kind of feel it's a similar type of premise whereby, like Nottingham Forest, they've arrived in the Premier League. I assume their finance and their ticketing team have done some form of benchmarking against other Premier League teams and other teams they believe are kind of more in their ilk. Like I assume they're not going to be benchmarking against Arsenal's 1.2 to 2K a year season ticket. I assume they're doing it more around the clubs around them. So that's one element of it. And I think they've probably been stung by other championship clubs that have come up previously into the Prem that have frozen prices. So I think I remember a time when Fulham came up like recently, and one of the things they did was when they came up, they froze the prices for that season. They were in a championship and a season in the Prem. So if you could essentially get 2 Premiership season tickets for the championship price if they were to stay up back-to-back years. So I think they're probably getting stung by that. And also when you break down the numbers, I was like, you know what? Maybe I've got my London hat on and I'm looking at some of these increases and I'm like, my council tax has gone up by more than these numbers. My energy's gone. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's not.
I mean, the numbers thing, I was like, it wasn't actually going to generate that much more revenue. 2 million is, I don't want to say 2 million is not a lot. Like if someone just gave me that, of course, I'd be living life. But for a football club, even for a football club of Nottingham Forest, I don't think 2 million is touching the sides of a lot. But naturally, you know, look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves. They say so. If they're making 2 mil here, they're cutting 2 mil in something. Maybe they're looking at the credit card bill of their senior execs. Maybe some of that hospitality doesn't get done there, saves a couple $100 bags. So it will add up, is what I'm saying. But on the face of it by itself, it doesn't feel like overly significant.
No, it doesn't. But I think the thing that kind of took me back as well is like let's say the club needs to do this to remain competitive. You've raised a good point about 2 mil in the grand scheme in the football terms. What does that really do? But I think, like you said, it'll probably be a part of suites of cuts and or opportunities that will grant them the ability to have increased revenue. And I think you're going to see more of this when we start to look at things around like the squad cost ratio rules. So invariably, this is one of the key drivers. So given we've FFP, bam, in the bin. We got rid of that after the Premier League fought for that for years. And we've refreshed it with something completely different that I'm sure the clubs will be more amenable to. What this then will do is like it will give them an opportunity to try to get their squad cost ratio to look as appealing as possible based on the revenue they're able to generate. So you're going to see more clubs kind of doing this in a fashion that maybe the supporters trust disagree with. But I also think like when I actually thought about it, right, having come back from Madrid and seen like Spain and a couple of people, Spanish fans and a couple of people sat in the area I was sat and stuff, like ultimately, when you look around the fans, whether you're in the 20,000 stadium or 80,000 stadium, etc., football is still a luxury, you know. And I kind of feel the uproar. This isn't like your energy bill or your mortgage has gone up, the interest on that. This is a nice to have. So like when you're hearing statements from the supporters saying that like, oh, the cost of living, it will affect their ability to go and stuff. I'm like, guys, this is a luxury. Like, let's take a step back. And I always tell you that story. And I think I've told anyone that knows me that mad story in that episode. I think it was an episode of maybe Sunderland Till I Die, where the woman's like getting her new season ticket. And the producer's like, Sharon, have you paid your energy bills or your bills? And she's like, no, I'm just going down to the box office. And you're like, really? And that's my worry about it. It's almost kind of like you guys have bigger concerns than the increase in the season ticket of Nottingham Forest, regardless how good you think they'll have a season.
Yeah, what people choose to do with their money is up to them, and it like I guess for some people that's going to be their one privilege of the month, of the week, of the like. Some people prioritize it in that way. Like they'll be like, you know what, I'm not gonna have Deliveroo, I'm not gonna have Just Eat, I'm not gonna have Uber Eats. I'm just gonna that's gonna be my one treat to myself. And so you can't live on just the basics. So for
bread alone.
Yeah, exactly. You can't live on bread alone to create some scripture. So you there has to be some, like, this is, I think this is what a lot of people, particularly in England, do as a social pastime. Um, you know, it's something that they may have been doing since they were little, when it was more affordable and cheaper to go. Um, so it's something that they it's like I don't say a religion or an addiction, but I don't want to put it that end of the scale. But it's like they have to do it. They have to go and
But then
find money to go.
if that's the case, right? What are your thoughts? I think there needs to be some level of pragmatism in place, though, because let's think about this, right? Let's run the process. A club increases a season ticket, increases their revenue, increases their bottom line and their ability to do various things within the operations, investments, right? Most of that will invariably go into the player side of the business.
Yeah, we know that from all the FFP. Like,
they're now in the Premiership, right? When they're in the Championship, like, you know, like, obviously your love of Derby County, like top Championship players, 30, 40, 50K, maybe, top players in the Championship. They're now in the Prem. To stay in the Prem, they can't survive on Championship alone. You'll just go straight back down. Just ask Burnley, right? And Sheffield United. So they have to spend, like, I know they spent wild 20-something players, 200 million or whatever. Those players aren't going to come for peanuts. So they're going to have to be paid 75K, 100K a week. How do they expect to keep the playing squad relevant and also capable and well equipped to stay in the league if you do not make some of these tough decisions? Because the other part of the spectrum is keep the playing costs down, transfers down, salaries down, and hope that you just have a amazing crop of players on very low salaries that keep you up in the league, or you stay up in a low points total, because invariably you will go down, like, if you don't offer some of these salaries. So it's kind of like chicken and egg. Do you want to stay in the league, have a good player squad, and pay a little bit more for your money, right? And maybe cut back that Deliveroo. I know you were just using anecdotally. Or do you want the season ticket to stay the same? You have to play more academy players who are getting rinsed by the rest of the league, and you go down with a mad goal difference and very low points total.
Yeah, I guess that's a choice for them to make. I think related to that, I think is people will maybe just feel as though, like, there's a whole rebirth for people like going to watch like non-league football and women's football because it's more affordable for people to go. And I feel like there's some championship teams who are like, or championship teams fans who are like, I'd actually just prefer to watch my team in the championship if it's affordable, rather than being in the Premier League and it being unaffordable. If the squad is going to have to improve that much, I'm going to spend so much on wages. Like, I know it sounds like not logical almost that people want to stay in the championship, but I feel like there's some I think that feeds into why we see people going to Sutton United, even though they're going to be relegated from the Football League soon, or even like just different lower league clubs. There's kind of been that resurgence because of it's affordable.
Yeah, it's a hard one, because I kind of like the business side, or like business hat, makes me think, actually, if you deep it, this money goes into investing in the playing squad, capital projects, stadium renovations, digital projects, football in the community, all those community trusts, community projects and stuff, youth and women's football. Invariably, if you don't do this, those things kind of suffer. So I guess the question is more, is it the increase, or is it the lack of engagement with the fans? And about the price change. And my kind of first response to if it's the lack of engagement with the fans is when like they're increasing the price at Gales of their like sausage roll or their cinnamon. Do they call?
You didn't even say correct. That's how I know you live in London. You said Gales. Okay. SW19. Yeah. Okay.
But hey, we've got one. We've only got one, Gales. Come on. But the thing is, right, when they're increasing their prices, they don't notify their regulars. I know I'm being silly. I'm comparing like but I'm just saying they are under no obligation to notify you of the increase. So I know there's a bit about from the supporters about the level of engagement that was sprung upon them. That's one. Two, even if they told them they were doing this, they would still have been an uproar. If your bank tell you 6 months you're going to have a 4% in your interest rate is going from 4 to 6, it's still going to happen. I guess the difference is maybe it's a mindset thing in terms of preparation. And I guess from their perspective, they're like, we don't really need to let you know. You either pay it or you don't. It's like for you, it's clearly a priced in an elastic product. So find the money or move on. But I think the challenge is now for other championship teams, and this is what probably happens when you get new clubs that haven't been in the league for a long time. When you're like a yo-yo club, right? Like no offense, like a Fulham or Norwich or a Southampton, not so much comparative to the other two.
Or West Brom back in the day.
Yeah, West Brom. You have like you understand what your season ticket needs to be looking like when you're going up and down, or when you come up and stay up a couple of seasons. But when you're Nottingham Forest and you haven't been in the league for whatever, you're stuck with guys. We're here for a fun time, not a long time, and therefore you hold the price and you may stay up, but your revenues will be terrible. Or you spend, you get fined because you break profitability rules. You've got outstanding footballers that people are, oh my God, I can't believe Callum Hudson-Odoi is here. I can't believe that guy from Man United, I can't remember who plays for Sweden. You can't believe those players are here. But then to fund it, you have to kind of make decisions that people don't like.
And part of it, I guess, 2 points I wanted to make was like, if you have a service and you're providing for a service and you think that everybody's happy to pay the amount that you have, it's probably good that you increase it again to see. You have to kind of test, you have to test your value, don't you? Like, you have to be like, okay, I've been charging 100 quid a session for my time or my hour, like, and I'm fully booked. What if I was to charge 110 quid? Would I still be fully booked? In other words, am I still going to be selling out stadiums or season tickets? Because if it comes to next season and they still got like a queue, there's a waiting list for season tickets. Okay, like it is.
Mark, thank you for your season ticket. The loyalty for 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, Jack, new season
My
ticket.
second point is maybe, and I don't know if this helps, and it had me thinking when you think about council tax. Obviously, every year council tax comes and they say, oh, yeah, it's going up by this much. Shout out Croydon Council who want to make me off every year, but they tell you that like this is what it was spent on. So it was spent on like fire services or this bins, To be honest, it doesn't resonate with me that much because I'm just like, I'm gonna have to pay it no matter what. Thanks for letting me know. But would that help the average footballer fan? I don't know how they would do this. Would it help to say we already know some of the finances through PSR and FFP, like that they're spending a lot of money on wages, but if they actually broke it down, included some of the stuff that happens on the community trust side, would that, and maybe for individuals to follow the money so that they could see actually, yeah, this is going up by 100%, but
this is what's happening.
60% of that is going to go to a new stadium, to the West Wing, or or whatever this stand. 20% is going to go to the academy and blah 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 blah. And yeah, I guess I presume there may be some form of consultation with the supporters trust. I don't know, consultation may be a bit strong, but then hopefully there's probably some dialogue, and they were, yeah, it depends. It depends on how the club. I think different clubs have different level of interaction and with the supporters trust they have. So maybe it'll be that they had these conversations, and they are having these conversations at that level, but it's not going to every fan.
It's not. But I think this whole topic of like clubs and needing to be profitable kind of takes us into the story that I saw towards the back end of the week. Obviously, the old lady, like Juventus, most successful Italian team. I think it's like 34, 36 Scudettos or something. I think they've got like nearly double Inter and AC Scudettos, which is pretty mad. But like obviously the old lady deferred payments during COVID were owing the Cristiano Ronaldo a hell of a lot of coin. and I think it's that kind of thing, right? Where it's like whenever I see things to do with Juventus, finance, corruption, I'm just like, no, genuinely, I always just think like they go together. Like I don't know,
Peace in the pod.
yeah, peanut butter and jam, or I don't even know shit. Like literally, when it comes to like financial mismanagement, corruption, like any of that type of stuff, match fixing. Like if somebody was be like, "Oh, it's a club in Italy," my head is instantly Juve. It could be like, it could be could be Serie B, could be Lecce, but my head is like, "Oh, what have Juve done now, man?" Like, what did you think when you saw that? And also, what are your thoughts on Ronaldo chasing that deferred payment when he's on a 156 or 180 million a year tax free, chasing 9 million debt owed a couple of years ago?
Run me my money. It's my money. Like, end of the day, yeah. All right. This. My first thought was, wow, COVID's still out here ruining people's lives. Like the aftermath of COVID, we're still seeing ramifications of it, aren't we? Where things were deferred, things were delayed. Oh, can you do me a solid here? I'm gonna pay you back. Don't worry about it. And then the revenues didn't quite come back to where they were, and everyone's like, "Oh man, I got 20 mil for you," but and then, that was kind of one of my initial thoughts, that COVID still pain is COVID pain is still rampant, and people are still suffering. And yeah, I'm making light of it, but it was clearly a significant issue that impacted football significantly as well. And a number of players had deferred wages with Ronaldo. I think is my understanding of it.
Quite a few Juve players signed up to it.
Yeah. The second thing, as I said, is no matter how small it is, like, and it's not small money, like that 10 million is a lot of money. 10 million is a lot.
World.
It's not. It's still a lot of money. 10 million is still like, if you earn £200,000 a year, and someone said £10,000 I'm not going to give to you, you wouldn't be like, oh, it's fine. Like that I think that's a significant amount of money. He's obviously worked with his legal team and said, yeah, I want it. And I don't feel the fact that like his earning has increased, probably, or I assume so now he's playing in Saudi, has increased since he's left there, that means that he's less entitled to that money. Football careers are short as well, so I know Ronaldo just seems to keep going. Ronaldo just does seem to keep going. But that, for like any footballer, I think it's like, as a general principle, I would like, make as much money as you can. Why? Because that is when you're going to get the most amount of bread. Nobody really turns into David Beckham, where they earn more money after they retire than before. There's very few
in their playing career.
Yeah, and they're playing that's going to be your maximum earning potential. So anything that you earn during that time, you deserve. And I think that he was right for bringing it. I would have done it, and I think that, yeah, as you said, Juve just seem to want to be involved in these financial impropriety, not want to be, but always seem to end up in these conversations.
They want to is a good enough term. Like, no, genuinely. Like, the first thing that came to mind when I heard the story was like, this is why players and employees, this is football and non-football now, are so skeptical when it comes to any form of deferred salary, deferred payment. Because there's always this concern of, will I get the money that I'm owed paid back? And if I get it, under what terms? Will I have to take you to court? Will you giving it to me 6-7 years? So like, just from a human perspective, forgetting football and the sums of money, this adds further credence to why people are actually like, no, your financial situation isn't my problem. I've signed a contract to be paid this, pay me my money. Like, and it's sad, but you'll start to see more footballers not just related to COVID, but any type of financial challenges will just be like, pay me my money. This is what my contract says. My contract doesn't have any clauses for exceptions or football challenges or whatever. It says you pay me 100 grand a week, I deliver the service. So that was the kind of first thing, because you end up just chasing your employer for your owed money. And I think the last thing, I think I've always told you this, like one of the kind of principles I have, like I tend not to borrow money from family or friends anyway. Like that's probably more related to like upbringing and African parents. But one of my like golden rules: never let people chase you for the money you owe them. Never. It's like it's just I find it this uncouth or just not great in terms of a reflection of your credibility as an organization or as an individual. So for Juve, like there's probably multiple players that they've not paid this money to, right? Ronaldo is just the biggest in terms of also had the legal funds.
Yeah, it can match them in. There's a parity of arms. When it comes to his legal team, probably just as big, just as much expertise as them.
Yeah, and the thing is, there are probably players who are like fringe players of Juve who don't have that money to go and get top the legal team to take Juve, or don't have the cachet that the story is on the back pages of the Gazzetta or whatever their main sports paper are. Like they're getting no traction on this. And also, it's 3 years. Like 3 years has passed. Like Juve, like how are you not paying a person 3 years, like 9.5 or what was it, 10 million euros, etc. Like so they've had ample time, and I think they're kind of lucky that he's been somewhat reasonable and been able to absorb this. He could easily have taken them to court years ago, and I think that's the kind of challenge. It just feels like for Juve, they're always one step from a financial turmoil. And the 3 dates I want to leave you with before I kind of like get your thoughts is like, obviously, you had last weekend, you got 2024 unpaid deferred wages settled by the Italian Federation to pay him 9.5 mil. You've got in 2022 November, they sacked the entire board. Like one of the most sketchy things, like how you sack the entire board. Something was going on there, but let's not speculate. So we're not perceived to be libelous to a large organization. And then what was it, 2005, 2006, the Calciopoli scandal, which they were involved in, that got them relegated down to Serie C. They kind of average, like, I don't even know the time period. They're averaging like a scandal
every 5 years.
Yeah, it's like literally, it's almost like a World Cup for them. Like an extended World Cups of like scandals just going on. And these are the ones that are kind of hitting the surface. Because the board resignations, that one kind of went, that went unnoticed, really. And that was probably because Chelsea had just been bought and our owners were splashing up cash, and Sky got distracted, and Juve just started like, yeah, you know what? Everyone's focusing on the Chelsea owners. Sack the board. No one's going to notice.
I guess another thing that had me on my fan books was around, if you're doing this as a player, you do not have any like leverage to get back your money outside of the kind of Ronaldos. You are not securing this as a loan against an asset against the club. So if Juve goes bust or does some other financial propriety, which we've just talked about they do, and now all their creditors are going to be above you when it comes to your wages or to your unpaid wages, because they're seen as an unsecured loan. So you're like, you're putting a lot of trust in this for you to not get your money back. And the way that they're moving, and the way that we've talked about clubs here, and they're teetering on the edge of financial stability and instability, like that isn't beyond the realms of like conceivability. So
I never even thought about that. No, genuinely, that I never actually thought about that. If they went under or were to go into some form of administration, unlikely, but you would be bottom of the list in terms of people getting paid. Like, and I guess that's probably quite scary, especially if you're Ronaldo as well, because Ronaldo will be you'll be bottom, but even across that list, Ronaldo will still be above you. So you would be below Ronaldo for some form of payment. So that's the thing that I kind of find weird. And then also, if you look at the players they've signed since, right? I think they signed like Milik, Timothy Weir, Moise Keane, Locatelli. I'd be like, how are you signing all these players and you haven't paid me, run me back my money? And even the players,
That is true. When you see people like stunted and you're like, bro, I still gave this guy £50 last week.
and then you see them. I'm like, and even the player sales, right? So they sold Kulusevski to Spurs for 30 mil. Zakaria, the guy came to Chelsea, was dead on loan. They sold him for like 15, 20 mil. So I'm like, bruh, why do you just split the Zakaria bread and like be like, hey guys, here, let me just break a bit of that Zakaria or Kulusevski bread. Here's your money.
Goes to my point of that there's probably other preferred creditors who they needed to pay back before Ronaldo. Maybe, I don't know. Nobody's going to cry for Ronaldo because he is probably getting to the point of billionaire in terms of his worth. But I think it's still, the principle for me is, yeah, it was a contract you agreed to, you promised to pay me if I performed. He didn't hold out. He wasn't like, there's not something, he wasn't like, kind of doing the NBA thing where he hasn't played or anything like that, or
wants a new contract.
Yeah, he actually was working.
I think the thing that grabbed me, right, is I felt instantly for the non-Ronaldos involved in this, because for Ronaldo, like, we're messing about. He's on ridiculous money in Saudi Arabia. I think Benzema made 150 million for the season. Ronaldo's in the 200s, right? He probably was just like, oh, damn, I couldn't buy those 2 new Ferraris. I'll get them next month. But for players on lesser money, of lesser importance and lesser weight, their owed money will not be 10 million. It will be proportional. But that money actually then is significant and is a concern. And I think ultimately, what kind of also frustrated me was a statement where obviously, so Ronaldo's representatives, I think they were seeking about just under 20 million euros. And obviously it's been revised to just over half that. And one of the things they said is the Italian Federation acknowledged I think the wording was contributory negligence. And I was like, kind of like, obviously we don't understand the full mechanics and the semantics but beneath that. But I was like, just taking it at face value, which is all we can invariably do in this situation, it's a deferred salary, right? Like, if that salary was X per week, for how many weeks or how many years he deferred it, multiplied by interest for the late payment.
Which has been high for the last 3 years. Well, last 2 years.
Yeah, or Italian inflation, whatever their inflation sitch is. I'm kind of just a bit confused in terms of contributory negligence. And also, I think it sends a bad vibe to others considering doing this, because you're like, oh, so if I forego 50% of my salary for 12 months, there's a risk that a committee, a panel, a federation, a governing board could somehow still rule against me in relation to the payment or the repayment of these funds. So do you know what I'm going to do? Nah, just run me my bread.
I didn't really know what the term meant around contributory negligence. I wasn't sure if they were stating that
both parts.
I guess I wasn't sure that what the role was in Ronaldo's part that led to this. Is it the fact that they weren't able to kind of reach a negotiation moving forward? But then that feels as though we've negotiated something and now you want to come back and renegotiate it. And because we've not come to an agreement on the renegotiation, I'm being considered as contributing to the reason why my money's not been given to me. Does that make sense? So you come to me, you say, Joe, Nash, 500 grand. I can't pay you right now. I'm going to pay you in a year's time, and we'll figure out the terms or something like that properly in a year's time. Then a year's time comes and you're like saying, okay, Nash, I can't afford, I want 10% on that 500 grand. And I'm like, no, I can only give you 4 or something like that. And then so we can't come to agreement. We can't come to agreement on the payment plan. I'll say, oh, I want it in 2 splits of 250. You're saying, oh, I can do it over 5. We can't come to an agreement. And then so I'm kind of being seen as somehow like negligent in that. That's the only thing I could think of where it's like that's how I've contributed to there being a lack of an agreement. But we did have an agreement. The agreement was to defer the salary and then pay you later. Now it's like the specifics and mechanics around it haven't been agreed, and I'm being penalized for it. But at the end of the day, Juve is a big financial power and institution, and so like most financial powers and institutions, I'm not gonna if it's Ronaldo or it's the kit man, like they need to pay them. They need to pay them what they owe them, and that's the end of it for me.
One thing that grabbed me also, like a kind of a 50,000-foot view, kind of coming away from the Ronaldo story and coming away from Juve, is what is actually going on with the financial models of Italian clubs? Like, because the thing is, right, if you think about top 4 clubs, right? So if you go, I know it's not the same comparison, Inter, Juve, AC, Roma, right? And you then go Arsenal, not in any order, so don't get excited, Arsenal fans. Arsenal, Man United, Man City, Liverpool or Chelsea or whichever, or even Tottenham, because we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, right? All of them have various issues with financial management, like some form of financial crisis. So Inter Milan, Steven Zhang, the chairman, who owns what are they called? Sunning Holdings, or they're owned by the Sunning Holdings group, of which he is the person at the top of the tree. So Inter Milan have had their issues financially. AC Milan have had their issues financially. Juventus have had their issues financially. Is it just like Italian football, whether you're at the top or bottom, and now we're going to use the big C word here, corruption, it makes their financial model to be invariably unsustainable? Because I've never heard from one league in the last like 10, 15 years, all the top clubs have suffered some form of financial difficulty, penalty, owners. Like Roma got bought by Americans, like Inter got bought by Steven Zhang, Juve been relegated, AC Milan have been sold by Berlusconi. Like they've all had various business financial dealings that have just not been, I guess maybe it's having challenges in that environment is not uncommon, like we said with Nottingham Forest. But all of the top clubs having that within like a decade just seems wild.
Maybe one or two Godfather movies or play. I can't really answer, but I think there may be that element to it, and I don't know Italy that well, but my overarching views around it is like the kind of fact it's not like financially regulatory robust when it comes to maybe some of our other European nations. For instance, you don't hear about this happening in Germany really to that extent.
It's that model though, the kind of 51-49, not the Brexit vote, but more the model around ownership in terms of like fan involvement that probably contributes to a more sustainable kind of model. But I guess what's quite interesting is when you talk about like financial turmoil and like clubs, it also then takes me to like our longest running domestic cup competition, the FA Cup. Some people's favorite competition, or I used to call it, I don't even know, can I even say it? But anyway, the FA Cup, where like now there's news that abatedly after long breath that the replays will be scrapped going forward, which is like interesting to me because at least when we were there, the argument that was always put forward is, oh, but the replays are so good for the lower league teams, the additional income they earn, and they'd cite clubs like having a Waterlooville going to Man United, like Crawley going to Chelsea, all these incomes, blah, blah, blah. But apparently those incomes are no longer important because they've scrapped the replay. So it was important for the last 20, 30 years when it was one of the key arguments they were putting forward. But now...
You know what's important now? Huh? Money. What's important now is making space for the growth and expansion of these bigger teams who are playing in European competitions, of the international fixtures, of being able to sell domestic rights, international rights for these competitions, and hence why they were like, yeah, sorry guys, we're not going to do that. And there's like they are truly pots of gold, like these return leg fixtures where teams hang on for a 0-0 or 1-1 and get there.
Come on, some teams. Did you not see George Alakobi, what he was doing with Maidstone? Was he trying to hang on?
Did you not just see Coventry's? I know that wouldn't have gone to replay, but
they weren't hanging on though. Like they still won that game.
They weren't hanging on either. So, but no, I'm just saying that
they are lying.
I always thought, like you said, the whole reason behind the FA Cup replays was to support that cup competition, that for those lower league clubs who managed to get like a home game at one of these giants and managed to sell out, get loads of memorabilia about it, and it just invests so much into the club, into the community, into the ground, into the players. A lot, again, these clubs where players might not get paid for a couple of weeks because the owner's struggling. Like, his construction companies took a bit of a hit, or one of them ones. So I understand it, but the reason why I think it's been done, and I think it's been done in partnership or collaboration with the Premier League. Can I say that?
Okay, yeah. I thought you were going to say a different sentence. Like, because obviously what was quite interesting is I read on the BBC and on the Athletics, like, conflicting stuff, right? So one said it was in partnership. So I think the FA statement was all parties accepted.
Yeah.
The EFL chairman or the head of the EFL said it was agreed solely between the Premier League and the FA.
Yeah.
The FA haven't lied. They said all parties accepted. They didn't say who the parties were.
Yeah.
The problem is the Premier League clubs accepted, and what they probably mean by that was like the top 8 told them what they wanted to do, and they sold it to the other 12, and then told the EFL guys, sorry, it's already been done, so eat this.
Yeah, you're agreeing to it.
They're not even invited to the party. They're just they're on guest lists. If the club's not too full, they're like, yeah, come on, here's £20 cover to get into the club.
So I think there was that I guess they were trying to say that the money that's generated from the fact that the Premier League is going to give them extra money for not having these replays. That's my understanding. They're not going to have these replays, but the Premier League is going to give them more money, and they help them going to sell the international rights because the Premier League has been doing bits in that arena for a while, and they then will invest that money in the lower leagues, women's football, etc., etc. The FA Cup is a huge generator for the Football Association. I think in one of the articles it talked about 60-odd%.
Higher than that. I thought it was in the 70s or 80s. That may have changed from when we were there, but I thought it was close to 3/4 when we were there back in 2019.
It's obviously it's something that kind of is handled at the top of the top when it comes to the Football Association, and with that in mind, I do think that it's the main reason again was to free up space. I know with the new format they're going to have dedicated FA Cup weekends again. It's going to be the second to last fixture, I think, so it will come before the Champions League final. I think that's how it's going to go. And you'll still have the opportunity, depending on the draw, of a lower league team facing a team at home that brings in the revenue. I'm not sure if it creates the same excitement as a replay, because it's like there's more faith because you've like had a draw with them, so there's this like kind of fairy tale from a footballing perspective. Anyway, that's right. It kind of gets drummed up. There's kind of two bits of news around it: the fact that you managed to get them to come back to your place, and the fact then on the day they're at your place.
Atmosphere was incredible.
Yeah. So I see this as what I said before, is that the globalization of football is happening, and those things will be prioritized over domestic audiences. and domestic fans. So when they want to be, you know, Champions League needs more spotlight to generate more revenue, or they want the FA Cup to generate more revenue by selling it overseas. Like these brands are more than just, they're more like, and you can use the same argument that people like the FA Cup is the best domestic competition in the world. Literally, you just said world, so that therefore means other people around the world are going to be interested in it, and it's of value to other people around the world. So therefore, you're going to, once you saturate this market, which most of it has been done, and you feel as though actually I'm, as the FA, I'm the governing body, I can do greater good, but it won't be like 3 or 4 teams this year who get, you know, that Man United away or whatever. They'll actually be able to put money in everybody's pockets, hopefully, with this deal. This is the theory behind it.
It sounds like you want your role back in the FA, man.
Call me up, Bollinger. I'm waiting. I heard there's a couple people left in that senior leadership team. I can do bits.
I was waiting for you to. I was like, damn, where's he going with this? Like, have they sent you like a press release? Is that?
No, but that's going to be in their mindset, is it? We can do greater good for the rest of the pyramid, and that replay money, which would usually go to 4 or 5. How many teams that, you know, actually get good replays where they're like, what they have, it makes a huge dent in their finances or in you know, in their revenue.
My thing is, I think I just don't buy it. And the reason I don't buy it is for several reasons, right? They say they've been talking to the clubs about this for a year. Like, I don't know whether it's proprietary information. That is just something that people aren't going to believe. A change that drastic to the competition, you basically change the format, really.
Premier League have been wanting this for ages. Like, it's not a year.
The only time it happens that quickly, like the Champions League format change, is when A22 released the new format of the European Super League, and then they've all rallied, or they've known this was. I know the timelines aren't necessarily aligned. The Champions League format was due to change, but that was due to change off the back of the European Super League coming into inception and actually progressing at a rate of knots that they didn't previously expect. But I just don't believe. So many parties, they're saying the EFL, that all clubs in the EFL are saying they weren't consulted. I think invariably we probably need to, when we start saying all parties, we almost need to start asterisking things at the bottom of documentation. Just say the top 8, because it will be some element of that in terms of pressure. And fundamentally, I think the competition then takes on a new format or life. Because if you go to extra time, if you're Doncaster, oh, that's bad example because they're a league team, but if you're like, whatever, Aldershot Town, and you take Arsenal to 90 minutes, it's 0-0. In extra time, with an extra third of the game, they are invariably probably going to beat you. Like, they will probably score again. I think you get an added sub with the sub that you've got left. So they'll just empty the bench with all the players that they actually need to smack you up, and then you'll go out the competition. You'd have made a decent amount. I just think that the competition is changing, and this removal of the leg, the what's his name leg, the replay, is the first instance of this competition changing, it being broken apart bit by bit, which then the question then becomes a broader question of what does the competition need to look like in the future to stay relevant? Because there's a danger almost that it will become less relevant to the top sides, like the top 10 teams, and it will be a competition really for the bottom 10 and the rest of the pyramid, and everyone else will deprioritize it. And also in the championship, the question you have to ask yourself is, if you're also trying to be successful in the cup competition, like the FA Cup, at what cost? Because look at Middlesbrough, focused on the Carabao Cup, got smoked by Chelsea in the second leg. Look what has had to happen to their league form. They're probably going to miss the playoffs. Coventry, amazing run. Fantastic day out for all the fans. Shout out Coventry faithful. I went to uni in Warwick, so need to give them their love. But at what cost has that cup run had on their league form? And when the league money in the championship becomes so great, promotion going up through the playoffs, you'll start to see managers actually who are on the hot seat and don't get the 11-year runs at the job actually starting to take a step back and say, you know what, if we go out early, like I remember when I was at school QPR, and all my QPR friends at school would be like, "Go out early in the cup. It is what it is." Like we ain't like put
There's
together.
a tipping point, isn't there? And there's also like greater reward financially.
Yeah.
So for depending on where you are in the pyramid. So if you're a championship club, kind of get into the latter stages of it. It's not like life changing. That's not it. But if you're like League One, periphery, non-league, getting past like fourth, fifth, quarterfinals, that is life changing. But obviously, invariably, there's far few of them. Then what I would also say is that I still think there's a big draw to watch English football. So I don't think I think it's commercially still going to be valuable in other here and other countries, and I don't think that the clubs will take it as it won't get to like Carabao Cup levels where it's kids playing. I think again the close, because you see in the Carabao Cup, the closer it gets to you winning it, the more experienced and first team players or first 11 that they play, even when it comes to the Carabao Cup. So I don't think that they will. Yeah, I don't think that it will end up being a situation where they're not going to play any like quality players or any first team players, or it's not going to be prioritized in the same sense as the Carabao Cup is. It might. My impressive in this probably should, like, the Premier League probably shouldn't compete in the Carabao Cup. Leave that as the kind of Football League Cup, and then you could introduce the FA teams like a stage later, or stage it in that. I don't know how you do it. So you'd have like half the league in the round 3 and then half in round 4, whatever that is.
You just need to join. I almost feel like for the competition to survive, the Premier League teams needs to start later. But the later they start into the competition, the easier it becomes for the top teams to win it. The less likely the teams that have had to play 8 games to get into the main draw will get a big side. And it also means they'll go out much quicker. So you'll get this envelope of 10 Premier League teams in the top 10, eliminating whoever they want unless they play each other. So I almost feel, I don't know, I think there's this danger that the competition will become irrelevant by default or just natural obsolescence, and without thinking about what is it the future. Its current guys isn't going to work. The replays is only, for me, staving off execution for a number more season till like Man City and United are like, actually, do you know what, that January, because you forget there's also the Club World Cup that UEFA have created their own tournament.
The Club World Cup. That's every 4 years. We're for the Champions League winners are going to be part. I think there's 12 teams in Europe that are going to be part of it. I don't know exactly how who the 12 teams are outside of the 4 winners of the Champions League.
UEFA coefficient, so it's who's done well in Europe over sports. So it's like
time. So then, and that's is it 8 groups of 4? Wait, I think it's four groups of 8 groups of 4, and then top 2 go through into one-legged round robin style competition. I think the first one's supposed to be in the US again, and it's like but it's happening every 4 years. So the Club World Cup won't be. It won't be. It
won't interfere with the FA Cup.
Yeah, it's going to be like during the pre-season time, where a lot of these teams will be doing pre-season tours anyway, and it's going to make bread. But I guess the thing about it is probably these rich clubs will probably get richer because they're the let's be honest, the ones with the highest European coefficients are going to be the big clubs.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it feels like I could see it being something that could be working. Like changing the format of it, I think could work. It feels a little bit more special now as a player for me to go in the Club World Cup that's only happening every 4 years as opposed to every year. Yeah. And especially if you, as I said, a lot of them have won something in order to get there. Like this is only going to if an average player's career lasts till they're 32 or something like that, let's say, or 36, and you start playing at proper, we break into the first team at like 20, there may be 4 or 5 times ever that you could ever compete in this competition.
Yeah.
So, like, great. It's one of the few things which I think UEFA has done well. FIFA has done well in terms of actually creating less football but more football. So, like, it's you can play more football games, like, because most people don't involve themselves in the Club World Cup on an annual basis. But by having it every 4 years might make it more special. And let's be honest, it's going to be in these global markets, Asia, America, wherever where the kind of revenue is that they can.
Another competition for the top clubs in England to push the FA Cup down the pecking ladder. So now becomes the league, the Champions League, and in that year the Club World Cup, FA Cup, then the Carabao Cup, and at a point, I don't know, I think that there's going to come a point where we're going to have to take a serious reflection of what the value of the FA Cup is, because evidently we're still milking it because its value to other regions, like you said, is still very great. It's still highly great, and it is at certain levels within the pyramid, but that strength isn't where it should be against the top clubs. So maybe not the strength is the word, but as in the appeal isn't as great. But I could be wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. And for those that want to say in the comments that that are in the top clubs, I'm actually wrong, that Arsenal do really value it, or Man United do really value it. I guess you value it when you make the final, but I think now we're moving away from a situation where the FA Cup is the trophy that keeps your job. So if we go back to the Arsene Wenger years, we're now like, it's now not enough. You can win the FA Cup. Pot could have won the FA Cup, still get sacked. Like Erik ten Hag could win the FA Cup, still get sacked. It's not a job keeper anymore. So we'll watch his space and see what happens. And if Nash is back at the FA, we know why.
Cheers.
And on that happy note, we'll love you and leave you. We'll do this all again in a week.
Take care. See you later.
Cheers. Bye, Ron.